I need to disassemble the exhaust. So there's a shroud here. If you've never taken yours off, good luck. They're not easy to get out. I managed to get mine off recently. Well, I had to replace a header because my equalizer pipe had rotted. So I've had these exhausts off the bike for some time. Basically, it's a slip-on with a clamp here, and then there's this shroud here. But there's a screw right there, and that screw kind of fuses itself to the header assembly. So that's the kind of the next step. And I want to take all of this coolant off, the radiator, the fan, the shroud, and then I'm going to disassemble the overflow, and I'm going to pull the oil cooler off the bracketing here for the radiator, and then I'm going to try to remove the radiator. My goal is to take the engine out, carbs, the air box, everything. Just drop the whole unit out as a single unit. Keep the coolant lines in there and everything. Not 100% sure I can do that yet, but it's looking good so far. I'm going to work on taking the exhaust off next. This has a nut and bolt. Shouldn't be too bad. I've recently done it. If you haven't done this in a long time, again, patience. Boom, there you go. So there you go. So there's a bolt right here. I'm gonna break it loose. I don't know when I'm going to oh geez, that wasn't even on. So there you go. I think we're at a point now where I want to start draining the fluids. Because in order to take the rest of this exhaust off, you've got to get into the radiator. So I'm going to pull the coolant out. There's no normal standard. There's no drain. I think they solved that, or they addressed that problem in later years. For the early years, the Gen 1 of it, they did not. Basically, it's pop the hose and let it spill its guts. And here's the water pump, either an inlet or an outlet. I'm going to crack it loose. It's the lowest point, with the exception of the overflow. So I'm going to crack it loose, get it to drain. Got to get all the fluids out. It gets a little messy from this point on. Matter of fact, I think I'm just going to take the whole line out. Get some air in there. Hear the air suction now. Here it goes. Because I wanted to get at it from its lowest point, I removed it from there. The whole radiator assembly, the engine oil cooler, the radiator overflow, all sits on this bracket right here. Mounted to the motor are these two brackets, one on either side, mounts to the motor. That's part of this bracket. To the frame it mounts here. Now with that, this whole bracket assembly should be able to come out. But here's the issue. I want to keep this on the motor. Okay, this is the engine oil cooler. So it is actually sandwiched in between, well, it's sandwiched in between here and here. So you can't just remove this bracket. So what I got to do is I have to remove this lower bracket that has the engine overflow. There's a hose coming in the back. It comes up, comes around, and it's just an overflow. So it just goes out the back. Very simple, easy peasy. On the very top, there's a hose that literally runs up, runs right here, right, runs out the back. No, straight that. The overflow runs out the top. This runs out the back. up here. It goes to the filler deck. So we're going to take this hose out as well. And then we're going to unbolt it here, unbolt it on the other side, and drop this bracket out of the way. And then that should allow us to manipulate through by unbolting the oil cooler off of this bracket here and letting us pull the whole radiator assembly out. There's also a shroud cover and an electrical connector, but we'll get into that. Shroud cover is right there, and there's an electrical connector to the fan that has to be disconnected as well. Pull this bolt out, drop the whole assembly. This actually has a spacer in it. So the overflow to this actually runs all the way out the back. It snakes along with the rear brake line, so you got to kind of pull it out of that channel. Up here is your standard wire pinch connector, because I want to remove the line. So it's just a little line that goes next to the coolant filler cap. And this should come right out. A couple of number 10s, one here, and then this is on a flexible line, so this should allow this to just come away from that. And there's one on the bottom. That might even have a bracket associated to it. No. But I'm sure it's got one of those grommets. Okay. So there you go. And this bracket now is free. So I can pull the radiator assembly out. You got this here, one in here, exactly identical on the other side, and an electrical connection, which is right here. It's actually on top, but I think it'll be easier to disconnect it as I pull it away. Next thing I want to do is I want to take the upper radiator hose out. I can admit that these hoses on this bike are very pliable. They're in excellent shape. There, so we have that out. Just a couple of bullet connectors. For what it's worth, I don't know if it matters. The one on the outside is blue. I'll note that, and I'll note my assembly after. So 14 mil to the block. I'm going to go back to the 12. There we go. Back this down. There's our shroud. Just clips in right here. So it just lays in place. It's not bolted or anything. And here's our fan connector. See if I can go up. And then out. Yeah, there we go. Up and out. And that's it. Took it out as a whole assembly. Okay. Voila! This goes up here. I'm gonna go put this on the bracket that I just took off, so I know where everything is. I'm gonna pull the exhaust completely out of this thing. Now I got full access to everything. Crack. 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 Okay, everything's cracked. Everything looks like it wants to come out. The top one goes over the bottom one. I don't know if that makes a difference. That's the way it is. That's the way it'll go back. Probably left the bottom one on, but it goes like that. Top over the bottom. Memory serves. There's no gap in it. It just goes in as it is. I don't see anything, but there's that belly pan bracket. Probably take that out. Oh yeah. There you go. Quick pause and clean this place up.